There comes a moment when the silence between you and someone begins to speak louder than words. When every memory, every glance, and every feeling they once tried to ignore returns with a force they can no longer resist. They're not just thinking about you anymore, they're realizing you were the one all along. There is a beautiful irony in life. People often recognize your value only after they've walked away from it. For a long time, you might have felt invisible, questioning your worth, wondering why someone who once saw the stars in your eyes suddenly forgot your light. But here's the truth. Destiny never forgets what belongs to it. The universe has its own rhythm, its own way of aligning hearts that were always meant to meet again. And right now, whether you know it or not, the person who once drifted from you is awakening to a truth they can no longer deny. You are the one they're meant to marry. At first, they didn't understand it. They thought love was about excitement, attraction, or timing. They thought they could find another version of you, someone easier, simpler, less intense. But the soul doesn't crave ease. It craves truth. It craves connection that feels eternal, not temporary. And as they wander through the noise of others, through relationships that never feel quite right, they begin to see what you were all along. The calm in their chaos, the mirror of their own soul. They remember how your presence felt like home. They recall how your words carried warmth even in disagreement. How your silence spoke understanding even when things were unspoken. You were not just another person in their story. You were the part that gave their story meaning. They might have walked away, thinking they were choosing freedom. But life has a funny way of teaching lessons through longing. They now realize that freedom without love feels like emptiness, and success without someone to share it with feels hollow. You see, love doesn't disappear when distance grows. It deepens. Every time they thought they moved on, something would remind them of you. A song, a scent, a place. The universe keeps whispering your name in their everyday life, because that's what it does when two souls are meant to reunite. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It nudges them gently until they finally listen. There was a time when you chased the idea of being chosen, when you tried to prove your worth. You thought if you loved harder, gave more, or stayed longer, they would finally see your value. But that's not how true love unfolds. Real love doesn't need convincing. It needs recognition, and recognition takes time. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for love is to walk away and let silence do the speaking. Because silence, when filled with self-worth, echoes louder than any plea ever could. When you stopped chasing, something inside you shifted. You started focusing on yourself, your peace, your purpose. You began to glow differently. And in that glow, you became magnetic. Not because you wanted them back, but because you remembered who you are. That energy, your confidence, your calm, your quiet strength, is what's drawing them back now. They can sense it, even if you haven't spoken in months, even if you've tried to move on, your energy still lingers in their soul. And as they sit in their thoughts at night, they replay the moments they took for granted. They remember the times you forgave them when you didn't have to. They think about how you understood their silence, how you saw their potential when they couldn't see it themselves. And it hits them, they were never unloved. They were unready. But now something inside them is awakening. They're realizing that what they were searching for out there was never missing. It was you. You are not just a memory. You are the lesson they couldn't ignore. You're the mirror that reflected who they could become. That's why they can't forget you. It's not obsession. It's realization. They're starting to see that love is not found through searching. It's recognized through awakening. And make no mistake, this realization doesn't come easy. It often comes when life humbles them. When relationships fail, when silence feels heavy, when they look in the mirror and realize they let something sacred slip away. That's when clarity strikes. That's when their heart whispers your name, not out of loneliness, but out of remembrance. But here's where your power lies. You don't need to wait. You don't need to pause your life for anyone's awakening. Because the moment you understood your worth, the universe began rewriting your story. Your energy, your self-love, your resilience, these things make you magnetic to everything meant for you. Whether they return or not, destiny will never leave you empty-handed. What's meant for you will always find its way, and often it returns when you least expect it, stronger, wiser, more aligned. Still, there's something poetic about divine timing. When two souls are truly meant to be, the universe won't let them drift forever. One day they'll look at you, not with confusion, not with hesitation, but with certainty. They'll know. They'll realize that the love they once overlooked was the very love that was designed for their soul's peace. They'll see that no amount of adventure, no amount of distraction could erase the quiet knowing they always had. You were the one. When they see you again, they'll notice something different. Your energy will be untouchable. You won't need to prove your worth, because it will radiate effortlessly. You won't need to convince them of your value, because your confidence will speak louder than words. That's the moment they'll understand. They didn't just lose a person, they lost a version of peace that the world rarely gives. And that's when their soul will whisper, "That's the one I was meant to marry." But here's the deeper truth. This journey was never just about them realizing your worth. It was about you realizing your own. Love isn't about being chosen. It's about becoming whole. You had to lose them to find yourself. You had to feel forgotten to remember your power. Because only when you rise in your own light do you attract the love that matches it. You were never waiting for their realization. You were preparing for your destiny. Now, as life unfolds, you'll notice that everything you thought was a delay was divine preparation. Every tear strengthened your heart. Every heartbreak carved space for deeper love. Every unanswered call taught you to listen to your own voice. And because of that, you've become someone who no longer needs validation to feel valuable. You've become someone who walks in love without fear, who trusts that what's meant for you will not pass you by. And that energy, that peace, draws miracles. That's when the tables turn. That's when the person who once walked away begins to feel the gravity of what they lost. They realize that no one listens like you did, no one understands like you did, no one loves like you did. Because your love wasn't ordinary, it was soulful, it was rare, it was real. So when they come back, it won't be out of convenience, it will be out of revelation. They'll come with open eyes and a humble heart, ready to love you the way you always deserved. But even if they don't, you'll be at peace, because you now understand something they had to learn the hard way. True love doesn't need to chase, it attracts, and maybe that's the beauty of it all. You were never meant to fight for love. You were meant to be love. You were never meant to beg for commitment. You were meant to embody it. And the moment you stepped into that truth, the universe began aligning everything, including the one who finally realizes you're the one they're meant to marry. So stand tall, keep shining, keep living your truth with quiet confidence. Because love built on recognition, not confusion, is on its way. Whether it's them or someone new, destiny is aligning for you. The same universe that once allowed distance will now create connection. The same silence that once hurt will now speak of reunion. And when that day comes, you won't question it. You won't need signs or proofs. You'll just feel it deep within your soul. The peace that comes when two hearts finally understand what destiny always knew. They're finally realizing it now. You were never just a chapter in their story. You were the book they were always meant to finish with. True love never truly disappears. It simply hides behind the lessons of time. Sometimes the universe separates two people, not to punish them, but to help them see what they could not before. When someone finally awakens to your worth, it's not because you changed, it's because their vision cleared. They start to understand that love isn't about possession, but about recognition of something eternal. They realize that what they felt for you was never a passing emotion. It was a soul memory. And as the noise of the world fades, that recognition grows stronger. Every moment apart becomes a quiet whisper of truth in their heart. They begin to see that the connection between you was never random. It was written long before either of you knew it. Love like this doesn't need to be found again. It only needs to be remembered. That's when realization replaces confusion and truth replaces doubt. That's when they finally understand you were always the one. When you stop chasing what is already destined for you, your entire energy transforms. You stop trying to convince, to explain, to beg for what is already yours in divine timing. The calm that follows becomes your strength, and your strength becomes your magnetism. People feel it before they see it. They sense your peace even from afar. The very person who once ignored your value now feels pulled toward you, unable to understand why. It's because confidence radiates louder than words ever could. You have become whole within yourself, and that wholeness is irresistible. Love no longer flows from need, but from abundance. That shift draws everything meant for you closer, without effort or demand. What once chased love now attracts it effortlessly. You glow differently when you realize your worth doesn't depend on anyone's attention. That's when the world and they begin to notice you again. Their silence was never the end. It was the space life created for reflection. You might have mistaken their distance for indifference, but silence often carries messages. Words cannot. In that quiet, their heart began to replay the moments that mattered most. They start to realize that your absence echoes louder than your presence ever did. Every memory becomes a reminder, every thought a reflection. They feel the emptiness that no new face can fill, no distraction can erase. That silence becomes their teacher, showing them the weight of what they took for granted. Slowly, their pride softens and their understanding deepens. They begin to grasp the meaning of real love, the kind that doesn't fade in distance, only matures in reflection. In that stillness they find truth, and in that truth they find you again. The silence that once separated now becomes the bridge of realization. You were never waiting for them to choose you. You were rediscovering your power to choose yourself. The moment you turned inward, your energy began to shift from longing to becoming. You stopped asking, "Why don't they see me?" and started asking, "Why don't I see me?" That question unlocked everything. Self-recognition became your rebirth, and confidence became your compass. You learned that love rooted in dependency is fragile, but love rooted in self-worth is unshakable. Each day you poured into yourself, you built a foundation no rejection could destroy. You realized that being chosen isn't a victory. Being whole is. The love you once sought from them began blooming inside you. That glow of independence, that quiet certainty, became your crown. And when you stood tall in your truth, the world finally began to mirror it back to you, including them. Because self-love is the first love every heart must master. When two souls are meant to meet, no amount of distance, time, or silence can stop their alignment. Life may scatter them across different paths, but the universe keeps weaving their stories toward each other. Destiny doesn't rush. It waits for readiness. It allows both hearts to grow, to learn, to evolve until reunion feels natural, not forced. You may not see the signs, but everything is being orchestrated behind the scenes. What feels like delay is actually divine preparation. Every heartbreak, every tear, every sleepless night was shaping both of you for the moment of recognition. And when that moment arrives, it feels effortless, as if time itself bends to bring you together. That is the beauty of destined love. It doesn't compete, it completes. The same force that once separated you now becomes the bridge that reunites you. Because what's meant for your soul will always circle back home. Your peace and self-worth are now your loudest signals to the universe. When you choose calm over chaos, you shift into alignment with what's truly meant for you. Your energy becomes a frequency that attracts respect, devotion, and love of a higher kind. You no longer chase love, you emanate it. The person who once didn't understand your worth begins to feel your absence like a missing heartbeat. They see that no one radiates the way you do now, and it humbles them. Your peace becomes your protection, your self-respect, your power. Love begins to flow toward you naturally, without force or demand. Because when you become whole, you no longer seek completion, you invite reflection. That's when love recognizes itself in you. That's when the universe mirrors back everything you've become. And in that sacred stillness, love finally returns, not out of need, but out of knowing.